Hey everyone, in this video we'll be talking about a popular AI code editor known as Cursor. And if Cursor looks familiar to you, it's because it's been built off the open source implementation of VS Code. And really the main addition here, as you could tell, is the AI infusion into the development environment. And we'll explore some of the top features that Cursor has to offer, such as the inline suggestions, the code generation. And in full disclosure, it's probably one of my first times using this. I've only played with it a little before, but I wanted to kind of take it for a spin, build out a sample GenAI project, funnily enough, and really see how much of the kind of grunt work Cursor can do for me. Because there's a lot of these AI or productivity tools out there, but I'm very, very curious what is actually something that I can use day to day, really in my development workflows. So let's get started right here. If you see, this is the landing page. I'll link this down below in the description. You can download it for your system. I've downloaded it for my Mac here. This might take a few minutes to set up. You can also set up a profile here. There's a basic and pro version. Right now I'm on the basic version because I'm still a new user, but I think if I continue to use this consistently, I'll document that and probably upgrade to that tier there. But within pro, you basically get access to more models in terms of what can be the engine behind Cursor itself, and then the rate limits are also increased, and I believe it's about $20 a month for the pro version. So we'll take a look at that if we continue along in this series there. But once you have this downloaded, right, you can go over to the IDE itself and you'll notice the similarities with VS Code visually here. There's the same kind of directory structure here. There's the same terminal setup that you could work with. And then also, if you have any extensions, particularly that you might be working with in VS Code, you can also install them here. So kind of mimic your same development environment. It's pretty comfortable, at least in the few hours that I played with this. I've gotten acclimated to it very, very quickly. You'll notice a few things stand out here that are different. There's first a onboarding kind of section here. And this was neat because just for new users such as myself who wanted to explore some of the newer features, you can see what it has to offer. So you can see some of the kind of inline code suggestions visually here in terms of what it can do. You can talk about how you can chat with your code base basically, and then also accept some live recommendations, which I haven't gone to playing with yet. The second part, and this is where we'll be operating for most of today, is this chat feature right here. And for those of you that have seen previous tutorials, I saw Tech with Tim's. That was a great tutorial. I'll link it down below. This used to be decoupled into chat and composer. I think with later versions of Cursor, it's been unified in this chat and agent mode feature right here. So this is a singular interface right now. And with this chat, it's similar to kind of something like ChatGPT where you can ask or define your question. But the main difference here is there's a few different modes that you can work with. In this agent mode, basically, which is the default mode, you have access to different tools such as web searching and also the command line. And you can also see this in their documentation. So if we go to Cursor, and also make sure to link this down below too. But you'll see there's different modes that exist. And within agent mode, you basically have a bunch of tools that are enabled natively for you. And this includes searching through your code base, having web kind of queries or searches, and then also different um, command line stuff that you could do too. So like if it has to search through your working directory or things of that sort, a lot of these are enabled by default for you through Cursor. And then if we return here, right, you'll also see there's a few separate modes. Right now in my working directory, I only have these access keys. I'll explain the project in a second. If you want to ask questions about a specific part of your code base or any files or code blocks, you could go that route. If you want to edit a specific part of your code base as well, you could go that route as well, right? So these are different modes depending on what you're exactly working with, but I think the agent one will suffice for today in terms of what we're trying to achieve. And then this next toggle here, you can basically also pick the model that's really powering the AI code kind of engine here. So I'm going to use Sonnet 3.7 Sonnet, the thinking agent here. And like I said, like there's some more models available within the pro version. So if you want that flexibility, you can go that route too. And also two more kind of small features I want to highlight before we get hands-on with the project today is there's also a multimodality feature. And I think this is also dependent on the model and what it supports. But here, if you upload, right, like an image of maybe a UML diagram or a basic architecture diagram, and you want some boilerplate code generated, you can think of that as a sample use case for using this feature within Cursor. So that's also pretty neat there. And something that I found to be really powerful, especially or intriguing here, is you can give context. So with whatever input query or prompt that you have, basically, you can give like, for example, an associated Git repo, specific files or folders associated with certain documentation to give that additional information so that Cursor can basically come back to you with a more customized or specialized prompt, essentially. So that's another neat thing that you can take a look at there. And if you want to see all the features that are available, and like I said, I'm still new, so I'm sure I'll explore more and more and document that. But you can see here that there's features that you can kind of toggle through to understand better in Cursor itself. And then there's also the different models that you can get access to, and then you can see which ones you can grab via the pro version. And then there's also, you can manually also enter your API keys and get build yourself there by entering in your own keys here at public API calls, basically. So that's another feature I noticed there, but just check out that settings tab for more information. But now that we have a general understanding of our ecosystem, right? The thing I wanted to test out today was kind of return to one of my first ever generative AI projects that I built. And this might be something that many have done as well. But 2 years ago, when GenAI was really imploding, what I first did was when Bedrock released, I built a sample Streamlit Q&A chatbot, similar to like ChatGPT, all those ChatGPT lights that everyone was rolling out those days. And I just wanted Amazon Bedrock as the model provider. And funnily enough, Claude also as kind of the model engine behind that Q&A chatbot. Back then, I had to use ChatGPT, Stack Overflow to kind of like get suggestions for the code or answer any questions. The difference here is we have this integrated into our environment itself, right? And it should be able to generate the files for us, give us recommendations in real time there too. So I wanted to take Cursor and kind of see how much of this can we do via Cursor itself and give you kind of a really live review or feedback. So if there's some random bumps and nits within this, it's all meant to kind of showcase the process here. So let's start off here. And real quick before I get there, if you see there's only one file in my directory, it's my access keys. Basically, you need an AWS account if you want to follow with this exact example. You can also substitute this with an OpenAI API key, whatever you're comfortable with. I just spend a lot of my time in the Bedrock ecosystem. But these access keys basically allow for me to access Bedrock and AWS from a local development environment such as this or the CLI. So I'm going to need these. I obviously won't be publicly exposing them. And if you see them too, like just make sure to like kind of delete them. Never expose these publicly. I'll be deleting this user after this just because it's the sake of a demo. But these we want to keep private in an application, right? So I'm going to make sure we say that in the chat here as well. And you can see this too if you go to the AWS console. Like I said, make sure you have an account if you want to follow this exact one. If you see I created a sample user here, and you see I have an access key basically that essentially allows for me to locally work with this and never ever give full out admin access like I did here. This is not best practice. You want to make this more fine grained. I just want a quick prototype and I'm going to be deleting this user after because you guys are going to be seeing my keys anyways today. But if I return here to Cursor, let's explain what we're looking for, right? And I'm going to say I would like to build a sample Q&A Streamlit chatbot. I would like to leverage Amazon Bedrock as the model provider and Claude as the LLM. And Claude, let's just use Sonnet 2, sticking with Sonnet here, as the LLM behind the chatbot and answering the questions. I've provided my AWS credentials. I can't spell for my life. In the working directory, I provide my AWS credentials in the working directory. Please make sure they're not publicly exposed and give me a sample prototype of how I can do this. So let's just run that initially and let's see what Cursor understands here. So I think since we're using the reasoning version of Claude Sonnet here, you can see the thought process basically in terms of what's happening. So you see it's first parsing our directory, it picks up on a credentials file, and then it's also generated a requirements text right here as well. Funnily enough, there's LangChain, even though we didn't ask for it, so I'm curious as to why that's there. We'll take a look at that in a second. So these are our dependencies. It's generated that. It's created an environment file with our different access keys right here. And then a get ignore. So if we push this to GitHub, right, we want to make sure that our credentials don't get exposed. So it's created that there. And then this app.py, I'm assuming, will have the main logic here. So we go to app.py. We'll see from LangChain, AWS, import Bedrock chat, LangChain core messages. So it's basically using LangChain for the kind of messaging portion of everything, I believe. But I don't see it in the boilerplate code here itself. Let's take a look at this. So here it's using OS environment variables to access everything. This code sets up the Bedrock client. Here we're initializing the Sonnet model, so we're saying this is how you structure the prompt basically, or I think here it's using LangChain here essentially. I think I want to keep this a little more simple. I'm going to say I don't want to use LangChain in this yet. Let's just keep it to the vanilla Bedrock API call and Streamlit. Can you update this prototype? And the reason I'm doing this is right, I just want to keep it simple, at least for this example. We'll go into future cases here, but I just want a purely simple chatbot. And there's not really, for LangChain, there's not really much of a purpose here outside of augmenting the chat. I don't think we're adding memory or anything either as well, but let's just keep it simple for now, just to understand this. And then we'll explore how we can do different things, such as like agents or RAG, and see how Cursor helps us there as well in future kind of series here. All right, cool. The code has been updated. What I can do now is I can accept all of this. Obviously, you should do an actual code review. I'm absolutely skimming through everything here, but you should do an actual code review to understand what's happening here. And now if I take a look at my requirements.txt, I should have just Streamlit, loaded 3, Python, this package basically to read the environment variables. And now what I want to do is I want to be able to run this app, but I want to run it in a virtual environment where my dependencies are a little isolated. So let me ask Cursor for some suggestions there. Can you give me instructions for creating a virtual environment to run this Streamlit app? And let's see what it outputs there. So here it's picked up on that we have Python 3 here. So we can run this to basically create our virtual environment. We see that it's been created there, and Cursor also picks up on it just like VS Code would. And then we can activate the virtual environment. So you can either run it directly through the shell here itself. So that's where I was saying like the command line is also a tool for the agent, right? Or you can also set it up here or just copy and paste and run it here as well. I'm just going to do it quickly here. So right here, once we've activated our virtual environment, we can basically install our different dependencies. So that's Streamlit for the UI, Photo3 for invoking Bedrock, this for essentially the environment variables. And let's say I didn't understand that, right? You can highlight this basically, and there's also some command shortcuts that I haven't memorized yet, but if you add this to the chat, and you can ask questions about it. So you can say, can you explain what each library is doing for our application? So if there's code that you're not understanding, basically, that it's generated, you can also ask it simply to kind of explain this or understand. And that's where you can also use this add context for more severe problems where you might have code within, let's say, a Git repo where you're not understanding what someone else has done or things of that sort. I'd assume that's a good way you can leverage this tool as well in terms of the context there. So right there, you'll see Streamlit. It basically explains each of the different packages and what's happening there. And one heads up for this, right? I think I just saw this flag here. Make sure Python 3.9 or higher is installed on your system to work with these versions of the libraries is what I'm assuming. Cool. So we've installed requirements.txt. Let me just double check by checking with Streamlit to make sure it's been installed. So it's installed 1.310, the version that we were talking about. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do that Streamlit run app.py command that's displayed there. And hopefully we'll see our chatbot up and running. Cool. Let's ask the age-old question that I ask all my LLMs that I ever deploy. This is Roger Federer, and you should see Sonnet taking some time. Obviously, I haven't played with any of the parameters here in terms of what's the kind of token size that, or the amount of tokens that we want responding, but you can toggle with that and play that. Who is Novak Djokovic? Just ask another simple question, just for fun, just to see this working. He's actually the bane of my existence. Absolutely killed me so many times when, especially Wimbledon 2019, for any Federer fans out of the 5 people who are watching this video. Okay, cool. So you can see that our chatbot is already working as expected, which is kind of stunning, right? I think we did all this in sub 10 minutes. I haven't checked the recording length yet, but we get a fully functioning way of invoking Bedrock without even really needing to understand how Bedrock works or how you're shaping the payload. It does all of that for you in terms of understanding that for Sonnet, and it also sets up the entire Streamlit code. So you can see here it's setting up the session state, things of that sort. Obviously, I'm simplifying this a lot. I haven't read through this code for me to understand every part, but we have a fully functioning chatbot end to end within basically 10 minutes of interacting with Cursor. And that is an incredible thing, in my opinion. And obviously, there's some nits here. I'm assuming, or at least some of the issues I had when I was playing with this a little earlier, is sometimes there were some dependency errors. But honestly, even us as humans, right? Like, we often run into these dependency errors ourselves. So there definitely needs to be, if I had to say, a very initial first review, incredible in terms of the knowledge it has and the access it has to these different tools and things of that sort, and the feature it has via this chat right here with this agent mode. Obviously, you still, as a developer, need to kind of understand what exactly you're doing, because if there ever is a bit of a bug within this, right, you need to be able to understand this code. But if you're trying to build a sample prototype or POC, this is absolutely like incredible. Like I have a fully functioning, let's say I want to build a prototype just to display a newly hosted model, right? This is incredible. Like my DeepSeek video, like I think a week ago and stuff, like I could have genuinely just asked Cursor probably here just to generate all the code for it. So I can fully see why like this is especially a game changer for like PMs or honestly people who don't have a computer science or technical background because you can build these prototypes to display any kind of products that you might be working on immediately. So really, really powerful in that sense. And even for engineers and architects such as myself, like this gives us a real boilerplate to work with. So I think in coming videos, what I'll do is I'll explore. Really, I'm curious about this image feature here too, and then also specifically about the context feature. So I want to see in a live kind of development environment where we're working on a Git repo, maybe with many other people, how exactly it can help out there in terms of that feature there. So very interesting stuff in that sense. This was definitely a cool experience. I hope I got that Cursor sponsorship through this, but I also hope more importantly it was useful for any of you that are trying to use this as a tool to add to your GenAI stack as you're kind of optimizing your development as well. So give it a spin. Let me know what you all think in the comments, the few of you that are watching this. And I appreciate you all, as always, for taking time to watch this. And if you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. No, as always, if you have any questions or feedback, please reach out to me directly and I'll be back very, very shortly. Thank you.